the draft that we agreed to, just so I
get going with Amber, if you want to.
Sure. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm just really thrilled about this this gift to our community from the Ballmer Group through Innovia Foundation. The Zone Project, a little bit about the history. About 4 years ago, an assistant principal at Shaw Middle School named Andre Wicks started to research different models of place-based work around the country that really have helped to impact education and economic outcomes for families, so in a lot of underserved communities. So you probably heard of the Harlem Children's Zone or the Promise Neighborhoods program. So 4 years ago, a bunch of folks got together and applied for a Promise Zone in the northeast quadrant of the city of Spokane, where we have really a concentrated area of higher poverty, more health disparities, and some challenges in kids graduating on time and being college and career ready. So I'm very passionate about the work because I grew up in the neighborhood. I live there with my own kids now. And so this is a collective impact initiative that came out of this Promise Zone application. And our 3 areas that we're focused on are in safe neighborhoods where our kids are safe and nurtured, engaging residents and families in schools and neighborhoods, and ensuring families have what they need to thrive. So we've gone through a lot in the last 4 years. I took over this initiative about a year and a half ago, and we've done lots of community workshops. We've engaged lots of residents and parents, and we have about 50 partners, including Innovia Foundation and Schools Out Washington and other youth-serving groups, as well as social service and healthcare related organizations. So we're still growing and we're still figuring out our next steps. But one thing we did in the last 2 years was to kick off a conversation and a collaboration in Northeast between organizations that serve youth after school and in the summer, because we are passionate about making sure kids have equitable opportunities to achieve their full potential. And we know that kids in underserved communities tend to have 6,000 hours less learning time than their middle and upper income peers. So through all of this, we are excited to receive a 3-year investment through the Innovia Foundation to invest in kids and youth in increased expanded learning opportunities. And I'm not an educator. I don't have a background in education. So I've surrounded myself by lots of people who do have that background. And of course, Spokane Public Schools has been a great partner. So the Ballmer Group sees a lot of potential in what we're doing in Spokane. They like our place-based approach to serving both youth and families in the same household, which we call 2Gen. And they were very impressed by the work we've done in the last 2 summers to increase the availability of summer programming especially. So with this in mind, 80% of the funds that are coming to Spokane from the Ballmer Group are going to be invested in direct service to kids in the Northeast neighborhoods. So I'm going to look at the application here just a little bit, and I'm not going to say too much more because it's pretty self-explanatory, and I want to give time for questions because that's where we'll find out what we didn't cover or weren't clear about. But really, we're interested in improving health, education, and social emotional outcomes for kids. And if you look at the program components, we're looking for 3-year proposals, and we like folks to incorporate one or more of the following. And you can see that serving kind of special populations of kids, racial and ethnic minority populations, students with special learning needs, English language developers, foster youth or youth living with other family members, or programming that will provide support for students in key transition periods. A lot of data out there is showing us that Pre-K, obviously you've heard pre-K readiness is very, very important and sets the stage for academic success and life success. Elementary, middle, and high school transitions are challenging, and especially when students are experiencing trauma or don't have all the opportunities for social emotional support that they may need. So we're looking for proposals that would meet the needs of students in those key transition years. Also, programming that will engage multiple ages or siblings. One thing that we've, through our asset mapping and our conversations with families, is that families who have working parents who are lower income may not have access to consistent transportation. Programming needs to meet the needs of the whole family. And so creating a program for third graders might be great, but what happens to the sixth grader that is attached to that third grader or the first grader? So one thing we're encouraging folks to do is apply for programs that would either be co-located with other programs or would meet the needs of multiple ages. So that's something to consider.
And with those three considerations, if your program serves English language learners and key transition years, but is only for third graders, or if your program is for multiple age groups and key transition years, but maybe not English language learners, it doesn't have to hit all three. Ones that do hit, all of those bullet points would, be very competitive. But if your program doesn't hit every single piece, that doesn't mean you're not eligible. And that applies as well when we get down to the student outcomes and the program objectives as well. Is on the application, we'll ask you to select at least one of the outcomes and program objectives that your program addresses. That if you don't address all of them, that doesn't preclude you from being eligible for the grant program.
So I know everyone on the call here this morning can read the rest of the details here, but basically the key goal for the zone project for this work, and our role as kind of a community convener and the backbone for the collective impact, is to be able to measure impact, to be able to measure and track data. So what's very exciting about this project is that some of the funds will go to Spokane Public Schools to be able to track out of school time data with student performance data. So we won't be asking people who apply for the funds to have to track the student outcomes. We'll be able to take the data and assessment that you do of your program, of the students in your program, and we'll be able to match that up with the students' academic attendance, social emotional scores that are taken at the school level. So we'll be able to really see a full picture of the whole child and everything that's impacting that child to get to those key academic, social emotional outcomes. So that's a little bit more about the student outcomes. Again, you don't have to hit every outcome, but at least one of the following student outcomes: learning performance, school engagement, like attendance, student behavior, and growth in social emotional learning measures. The school district is using a measurement, and this summer we piloted using those same measurements for several summer programs in Northeast, and so it's very user-friendly. You can pick several domains of social emotional growth, and you can build a program around that and then measure if the child has made any changes in their growth. I think something really important before I hand it over to Ben to talk about the quality piece is that this program these funds, the Balmer Group is making this investment to increase the number of students served. So it is vital that in your application you explain to us how this will serve new students in Northeast. So it's not to supplement current students that are being served, but to actually increase the number of students. And so it could mean serving more students in your current program, or starting up a new startup program that targets a particular population. And then finally, the program objectives. We'd like to see at least one of these program objectives met, expanding programming to meet the needs of all students. So that's showing us how it meets cultural needs, special learning needs, behavioral needs. It could be English language learner needs, whatever those needs that are unique to some students. Improve coordination of out-of-school programs with schools in Northeast Spokane. So showing us how what you're doing in your program is supportive of what the school district's performance indicators are, and how it's supporting what's happening inside the school day. And then engaging parents and families in the student outcomes. The Zone Project will be doing a lot of work around the adult side of the 2-generation strategies. We will be working with schools to blend in other programming for adults and to support adults being very active in as their child's first teachers. We believe that parent engagement is critical. And so if you have a way to show us how you'll meet those goals of getting parents involved in their kids' learning, that would be very, very important to the program. And so the awards will decrease over the 3 years of the grant. And this is because, in a sense, this is kind of like a challenge to our community from the Balmer Group. They are saying, hey, we think you guys are doing some great work. We like the collective impact model. We like the way the school district is willing to work with nonprofit and other partners. And we think if you're successful, you'll be able to be sustainable and continue to serve the same number of students after the 3 years. And so that's why the grants go down, because the expectation is that you will tell us how you will keep the program sustainable, either by raising money yourself, bringing in volunteers, bringing costs down over time as the program gets settled, partnering with other groups that can help keep your costs low, like the school district with free space. So, and then Innovia Foundation and the Zone Project will be working to tell the story about all the good work that will be happening, and we'll be able to, hopefully continue to bring money into this fund at Innovia Foundation that will be available for future grants. But, the expectation is to be able to stand up a program and then show our community that we can create impact for kids, and then be able to keep that program sustainable. And then I'm going to hand it. So, and then there's the details of applications are due by September 13th. And the grant funding, we should be able to make decisions pretty quickly and get going by October 1st. We would have loved it to be going September 1st when school starts, but the funds just weren't available till later this summer. And so we will get going, and we plan to have another round of grants for summer learning in the winter of 2020. So Ben, you want to talk about why we care about quality programming?
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Ben Baird from Schools Out Washington, and just a little bit of history about Schools Out Washington. So Schools Out Washington has been working in Washington State for, I think, the past 23 years in the out-of-school time area around quality, youth program quality. Basically what that is when we see agencies entering into a quality improvement cycle, we see all of the impact areas increase for youth. So that's why it's important to focus on quality, but Schools Out Washington looks at quality through an equity lens. So we want to make sure that all kids that are entering any youth program are experiencing a very high quality youth program, regardless of background, neighborhood, all those indicators. So for the purposes of the Zone Project and this grant funding, programs are going to be participating in what we call the ELOQI. So that's Expanded Learning Opportunity. I don't remember what the I is. We change the I all the time.
Quality initiative.
I don't know. Improvement. It's something like that. But what that means is throughout the school year, you're going to be meeting in cohorts to improve quality through learning community meetings, through professional development. And then you'll also have some resources to use, like our assessment processes, and then coaching as well. So those are all things to think about when you are going through your application process. Think about your time and think about your resources as well. We have set aside some dollars to assist with that process. So we're excited to be able to take all of the chosen programs through this quality process. And I will tell you, this will be going on statewide as well. So you'll also be able to see some of this stuff statewide and how the zone is shaping up compared to other parts of the state as well. So.
Great. Thanks, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
And then, just as Ben touched on, we did set aside some dollars for stipends for the staff time. We recognize that, it is an investment on your staff to engage in this quality improvement. And so those are available on request for the recipients of this program. And it's just a really exciting opportunity to do a lot more than just award out grant dollars, and really work with folks to do quality improvement and capacity building, and really build some robust programming in Northeast Spokane. So I'll just very briefly kind of share my screen and show you how to get to the application and run through the questions quickly, and then we can open it up for questions. All right, so to get, okay. So to get to the application, you'll start off by just going to innovia.org. And then in the top corner, you'll see nonprofits, and that's really just for grantees. If you're, the school district or government entity, you fit under the grant applicant grantee profile. So you'll click there, and then you just scroll through, and you'll go to our grant programs page and click on apply. So this just has general information about Innovia grant programming in general. I'm sure a lot of you have been on this page before. It talks about our eligibility requirements. Folks do need to either be 501c3s or schools or government entities to be eligible to apply for this programming. And then if you scroll down, you'll see a little tab for the Zone Project Expanded Learning Grant Program. And this covers a lot of what Amber, discussed in her presentation. And then here is a link to the application portal. So I already have it open, so I won't click on that, but that'll take you to a preview page. You don't need to have a profile in our portal to just see the description of the application and kind of get into the portal. You will need to have a profile in our portal to apply for a grant program. So you can log into your profile if you've applied to an Innovia program in the past, or you can build your profile. And so this is what you'll see when you click on that link. So it's just the description. This is what Amber was talking about with, the components, the considerations, the student outcomes, and the program objectives, the funding limit, all of those pieces. And then when you actually go in, so over here, so you can click on the apply over here. And so that takes you into the application. Ooh, sorry. Trying to share the screen and navigate through tabs without opening Zoom. Okay, so then here's the application. So we really made an effort. As many of you know, Innovia is in the process of redesigning our grant programming in general, and so we're treating this as an opportunity to experiment with streamlining our our application. And
we're the guinea pigs.
And we're really excited with what we've come up with. And so this is just pretty quick and simple. Your program name, your first year request amount, because the funding will decrease by 25% of the original award for the second and third year. So if you got $20,000 the first year, you would get $15,000 the second year and $10,000 the third year. So you just need to worry about how much you're requesting the first year, not how much you would be awarded the full 3 years. How much the program will cost in general. And then the purpose, is this a new program or is this expanding an existing program? And then depending on what you select there, how many students will you serve, right? If it's a new program, however many students you're serving, those are, expanding the number of students served in Spokane. And if it's an expansion, then how do you plan to, bring in new students, and roughly how many new students do you plan to serve in the first year? And just the first year, we anticipate that those numbers should hopefully increase throughout the next 3 years, but you do not need to estimate how many students you'll be serving in 2021. And then the student outcomes and program objectives that Amber touched on, you can select as many of these as are applicable, but as long as you have at least one of each, that's all you need to submit your proposal. And then we just have a couple narrative questions. And so these were taken from GuideStar, which is an organization focused on promoting transparency with nonprofits. It's what we use to do our due diligence to verify the charitable status of organizations. And folks can go in and build their profile in GuideStar and put in a lot of information. They have a charting impact framework that folks can use, which is applicable to your entire organization's kind of goals and visions for the next 3 to 5 years. And these questions are taken from that and adopted to fit this program. So if your organization has completed your charting impact framework, you can use that as a starting place and then just, make sure to personalize it for this program and not your organization's goals in general. And if you have not completed your charting impact framework, that's more than okay. You can just answer these proposals as you would in a typical grant proposal. And we have a guide for the questions, so you can click on this hyperlink and that'll take you to the guide. And so it just kind of runs you through what to consider when you're addressing each of the questions. What are the student outcomes that you're hoping to hit on? What are your strategies for making this happen? So this guide is pretty self-explanatory and just a resource to really help guide your responses to the questions. The two that we added beyond the charting impact framework is kind of your sustainability plan and your program budget. As Amber touched on, the hope is that, this grant programming will support programs that will continue beyond the 3-year period. That's why it decreases, to help you start to build in outside funding sources. And we are really encouraging folks to build in a line item in your budget for sustainability planning. If you need to build in a line item for how you're going to be fundraising and going to the community and going to private funders to get additional funding to keep this program going, build that into your budget now. We really do want to be working with you and supporting you and ensuring that this program is sustainable. So this isn't just, something to worry about in 3 years. It's something to really start planning now. And then as far as the budget, we have a budget template that you're welcome to use. It's based off of the template we have for our 1-year grant programming if you've applied to an Innovia grant. But you don't have to use that template. Really, whatever template works the best for your organization that fits, helps you address all of these pieces, that's, that'll work. So using that guide, you just will go through and, submit your responses, upload your budget, and then submit your application. As Amber mentioned, they're due by the end of the day, 11:59 on September 13th. And yeah, I guess that's kind of everything. So we will just open this up for questions. I think all of you are muted, but you can go ahead and either unmute yourself or just send a question through the chat box. And yeah. And actually, while folks are thinking about the questions, I got some really good questions from an organization that was unable to join the call that I'm sure kind of apply to a lot of you, so we can start with those. So the first part of the question was that Shaw, as best they can tell, they're a Seattle-based organization that does work in Spokane. Shaw and Gary Middle Schools feed into Shadle Park and North Central High Schools. Is that correct for the geographic?
So, no, those two... So if you're unfamiliar with Northeast, there's 9 elementary schools that feed to Shaw and Gary, and then 75% of the students would attend Rogers High School. So the transition to Rogers is very important, and there's about 25% of kids that transition to LC from the Logan-Stevens part of the lower south part of the Northeast neighborhood. So where I live, so all kids will attend if they're east of Division and north of the freeway, basically. That's kind of the area of the city that feeds that. And I didn't get into that too much, but the zone project was kind of unique in that we before I came on, because it was a partnership between the school district and the city and a variety of different partners, it made sense to support families kind of cradle to career in an area where you could follow families through a feeder system of schools. And so we're working at the early learning level in Northeast. We're working at the K-6, the middle school, and the transition to Rogers. If there was a program that supported kids that go to Shaw but then are transitioning to LC, we'd be open to that program too. It's really serving the kids that live in those neighborhoods. They may also attend the charter school, International Academy. We're really kind of trying to focus on people that live in the neighborhood and attend schools in the neighborhood, so that we'd be able to follow those students. And we know there's transiency. We know families move. That's a big issue in higher poverty families with our housing affordability issues in Spokane continuing to be a challenge. So we know families move across town, and we know that. We're trying to be as place-based as possible, though, and really support the schools in Northeast and support the kids. So after-school programs at any of those 9 elementaries or the 2 middle schools or Rogers would be welcomed. If there's other ideas, you can have center-based programs like at Northeast Youth Center or Boys and Girls Club or a church basement. I mean, wherever you want to run this program, I think that the key thing is to make sure that it's going to be accessible and you have a way to support kids getting to your program.
Great. And then the second question is that grants are pretty large and they're for 3 years. The smallest grant, so the grant amount is minimum $20,000, maximum $65,000 for the first year. And the question was kind of, that's a lot of money to support the programming they're already doing in their schools, and is that an issue? And so then the first piece of that we already touched on is, this funding is intended to really expand the students you're already serving, right? So whether you're hiring a new staff person or doing a lot of additional outreach. So that's kind of where that funding would go to. I don't know if you guys have more to add to that.
Yeah, we looked at the cost of, this is just an approximate cost, and don't get mad at me, people who run programs on this call. But based on my interviews with different programs, both school-based or out of center-based programs, kind of a $5. What is it that Lisa White and I put together? There's a certain cost per student per hour to provide programming, and so based on that, that's where we started with. We figured that when you wanted to increase the number of students, like 20,000 would be enough to do that, and also think about your time for quality training and your time for fundraising and other things you need to do to keep that going. And then if you're starting up a new program, that's where there's going to be some startup costs associated, and so that's where you might get into the $50,000, $60,000 to actually start up a new program. And at multiple locations, for instance, maybe at different housing complexes in Spokane or at 5 schools. I mean, if you think about the cost to start up that and bring in resources the first year, supplies, whether it's a STEM program or a music program, there's going to be some costs for startup. And so that's kind of where the numbers came from, thinking the lower number would be maybe just adding students to current programming, but then participating in the quality piece, which actually would benefit all the students in your program. And then maybe if you're starting a new program at the high, that's probably where it's going to cost a little bit more at the beginning.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Does that, I think, answer the question? Okay.
And then they put in a quote from our description of the zone that's to support the whole child and whole family. The ELP, which is this program, will work closely with Spokane Public Schools, families, youth serving organizations, and health, education, and social service partners. And they said they didn't involve health and social services. Would that be an issue? No, that wouldn't. The idea behind that is that we're bringing lots of different organizations together to partner and serve students and families in Northeast Spokane. So, and that's everyone that makes up the fabric of that community, from schools to the service organizations to the education program. So if you're not, everything, that does not preclude you from applying.
And I think, and what we're getting at there is the whole early expanded learning program for the Zone project is looking at, bringing in resources that meet all the holistic needs of the child and the family. So, and that's what I was getting at with, we have a whole family coordinator position that works on a lot of our adult supports and parent supports. And that will really be aligned with this work. And so as much as possible, and there may be a visit from the dental, there's lots of things you could integrate into your program. And I think, full-time programs are pretty familiar with that, where you might bring in a healthcare provider to teach kids about, good dental care, or you may have a food distribution for kids and families at your after-school program through Second Harvest. I see there's Kathy from Second Harvest is up on the chat. So that's what we're getting at, is our overall program is about meeting the whole needs of the child, but we're not asking in your individual program to integrate all of those partners.
Wonderful. And then that last question was that this organization certainly serves underserved, but not so much English language learners. Is that an issue? And that kind of goes back to my comment when Amber was speaking that, as much as you can address these different components and objectives, that's wonderful, but you don't have to be everything to everyone and serve everything we've listed in the considerations for this program.
I think that would not be a good idea, because you would probably dilute the effectiveness. So if you're really trying to serve English language learners and maybe refugees from, a variety of places who are coming to Northeast Spokane, I would assume that program would be, pretty unique and culturally responsive. And so we wouldn't want you to try to meet the needs of every kid in every program, although we would encourage they be trauma informed, that they be they will go through the quality training, so that the outcomes will be successful, no matter, as you said, Ben, where the student's coming from in their life. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, and then we have a question from Kathy Hedgecock. Will part of the application process potentially include a site visit or telephone conversation with applicants to clarify any information? That's a very good question. This program, we're working on doing a very fast turnaround, right? So application opened on Monday. It's open until September 13th. And then we are anticipating letting folks know the status of their application on or about September 27th. So that's a 2-week turnaround from when they close to when the committee will meet, make the decisions, and the feedback will go out. So if there are any clarifications in an application, we will follow up to, get answers to questions we may have, but we won't be building in phone visits and site interviews in the review process because of time. But this is a very interactive grant program, so that doesn't mean that throughout the program there may not be site visits and, lots of work with Schools Out Washington and working with the whole family or the ELP coordinator with the zone. And so there will be a lot of engagement, but I don't think we'll really have time to do site visits just because of the short review time. And then we have a question from Bukola Brzezinski. So there's a couple questions. Would programs that provide professional development to teachers to engage students in educational resources or programs fit within the grant guidelines?
I think if it was in the context of an actual program, like if I'm just trying to, I think I understand what you're asking. Really what we're trying to do through the grants is ensure that more kids are getting served with quality programming. So I guess if the professional development is part of a quality program, but I think in and of itself, it's probably not going to be, this grant probably wouldn't be right for that. Do you know of other funds out there for just the professional development? I know there's probably a lot of different options, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think what we're really looking for is, service to youth directly. So
out of school programming.
Okay.
But I would suggest, this is just off the top of my head, if you haven't tried, and maybe you already have, the Spokane Public Schools Foundation gives small small grants out to teachers and teacher groups for different, I don't know if they do professional development with those, but I think they do. But maybe it's also classroom activities, but there's probably some other opportunities. But I would say this particular program, the professional development, is tied to actual service to kids.
Great. But, you know, as we have Schools at Washington tied into this, the professional development of your service providers and whatnot is a big focus of this grant for the
I just don't think it would be
just not the teachers.
Not the in-school teacher piece.
Yeah. And then would the zone help make connections with local schools, community centers, or will this be left to the organizations?
Yes, and one thing I didn't get to because I was very long-winded, I always am, but part of the funds are going to hire, and so stay tuned for a job announcement coming out. If any of you want to forward it around to your organizations, we'll be hiring an expanded learning program coordinator. So the Zone Project will have a full-time coordinator that will work with all of these programs and programs that don't necessarily get the funding to make connections, to make sure that they're on the right paths to meeting their goals and outcomes that were identified. Because really, the Zone Project is responsible back to Innovia Foundation and the Ballmer Group for meeting high-level goals for X number of students served across the zone, and increased communication goals, increased parent engagement goals. So we're going to be collecting all the data from this ELO coordinator will be collecting all the information, supporting the groups, helping them make connections. And so we will be definitely helping with that. I don't know if you meant prior to filling out your application, or if you are funded, you will be getting a lot of support from the ELP coordinator as well as the quality training.
Yeah, I would add that within our learning community meetings and environment, and even through your assigned coach, those connections are kind of built in. That's what we're really passionate about. We believe that the more connections there are when it comes to youth serving agencies, the better outcomes it is for youth. I mean, if you think about it, like if you as an organization are working with 10 different other agencies to support your program, that means that a single child in your agency is being impacted by those 10 agencies. So connections are really important. So we definitely help with that too.
Great.
So the Zone Project's been spending probably 3 years, putting together a huge list of different social service providers, youth providers, that are interested in partnering, healthcare providers. So we'll have 2 full-time positions at the Zone Project. This early learning position, early learning. It's a Friday. Expanded learning. It could be early learning, but it's expanded learning. And then we have a whole child or a whole family coordinator position who is full-time with us now, who has been creating a network of supports for families and who is working with schools in the zone to align parent programming. And so those resources will be all available to connect with programs that receive grants, so that we're all going to be rowing in the same direction and supporting each other.
Yeah.
Great. Then we have a question from Ryan. Is this grant available? Scroll down. Is this grant available to organizations who do not provide direct programming to students, but would work with ELL or culturally diverse communities to engage parents and students around increasing access to the various programs partners offered in this partnership?
So Ryan, you're trying to get at more of like outreach and education. So connecting with families so that they are aware of opportunities. So it's more of the communications and outreach side of things. Is that what you're asking?
So the second half was developing and strengthening relationships, addressing community barriers, and increasing overall community engagement of programming as an example of tasks.
Yeah, I see where you're going with it. I guess I would hope that if that's happening, that we would have appropriate, hopefully we have programs that would meet the needs of various culturally diverse communities. So I guess I would encourage you to partner maybe with someone who's providing those programs, and maybe go in on the application together and show how you're going to provide the programming and then do outreach and education and engagement with families. I think that's, it's eligible for the funding, but I think it needs to be tied to then be able to track what was the impact to students that then registered or attended and participated in programming.
Yeah, I think what we're looking for is agencies and organizations that are providing consistent youth programming to children and youth in the zone area. Yeah. So
for instance, I'm just throwing this out, but if there's a nonprofit that's providing an after-school program to a particular community of color, refugee community, I would encourage you to connect with them. And if you have the ability to outreach and engage and educate folks in that community about the program, that would be a great partnership, because that's something that we're looking for. And maybe not everyone has both of those pieces as part of their program. They may be really good at running a program, but they may not have all of the tentacles out in the community to identify and build those trust relationships to connect kids into the program. So hopefully that helps you answer it, Ryan. I know you had reached out to me earlier, so maybe we can talk further. I had an idea of another group I could connect you with, but I think what you're bringing up is really important and valuable, because you get what we were saying earlier about, if you're not engaging culturally diverse communities and meeting them where they're at and understanding why or why not kids are not participating in programming, then you're not going to be successful. And you need to build those trust relationships. So again, I think where you're going is great. If you could connect in and show how this work will actually connect students into programming where they can be tracked for their impact, that would be, for the impact of the program, that would be ideal.
Great. If anyone else has, there we go, another question. If what we'd like to propose could be a year-round approach to serving children and families in the zone, should we focus the budget solely on the school year for the purpose of this application, since there will be a separate grant-making round for summer programs?
Great question, Kathy. Were you a ringer for us? No, we forgot to. I did mention that we'd have a separate round for summer programming. We went back and forth on this because, I mean, we know we have the funds available for the summer. To support some groups for the summer. But because we're still in summer and there's still groups just finishing up their current summer programming, we wanted to give people more time to really think about that. So yeah, I would focus your budget just on the school year. I know it's hard for some people that work year round to just think about 9 or 10 months, but if you could do that, that would be helpful, because there will be another round for the summer, probably in January, I'm thinking. So then you'd be able to then say, okay, for this 2.5 month period or so, So I know for some groups, they just work year round, and so it's a little different for others.
Great. If there's any other questions, this is last call for questions. And this is also not, exhaustive. If you have a question that comes up after this call, or you're working on the application and starting to work through these considerations and something comes up, feel free to reach out to Amber or myself, and we can chat through those with you.
Yeah, we really want to help you. We want to connect you. Like if you have a great idea, but you need a location, or if you have a location, but maybe need to bring in another partner that could reach a different age group than what you focus on, just reach out, and I'd be happy if I can think of, we've been working in this space now for, a couple years, and in terms of the after school space, at least in the summer. And so many of you I know on the call here, because we have relationships. So the goal here is really to get in, applications that will help serve kids at a higher level and we want you to be successful. So reach out. If I don't get back to you right away, I am going on vacation next week, but I think Alicia should be able to help with some. And then Jenna Ray, who's the whole family coordinator at the Zone Project, she's kind of in charge in my absence next week. So she'd be happy to connect you if she can with others. But yeah, I really just think about how you could partner to make it possible and keep costs, affordable. And we on the Zone Project and Innovia will worry about, making sure there's a way to get your data about your students into the school district, database. We'll work on the data sharing agreements. We will support you in all those different efforts. We just need you to think creatively about how you could serve kids in a way that meets them meets their needs, and again is considerate of the barriers that many families face who have income barriers, transportation barriers, past ACEs and other things that cause challenges in achieving their full potential. So just think about how you can do that and partner, and I'm happy to be a resource, and Alicia as well. So thank you so much for your interest. I really, really appreciate you guys being on the call.
Thanks, everyone. Any final thoughts, or that was pretty good?
Yeah, looking forward to seeing some submissions.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy your summer weekends. They're wrapping up. So
Thanks, everybody.